Good morning, it's 9 o'clock, and welcome to the July 16th Board of County Commissioners Agenda Setting and Work Session. By way of introduction, I'm John Hutchings. This is
Gary Edwards, Time Inser.
Ramiro Chavez, County Manager.
Please, Law.
Bonita Bolmar.
Thomasina Cooper.
So we're all here and accounted for. And we're going to go through the agenda for this afternoon's BoCC meeting and then the agenda for next Tuesday, the July 23rd meeting, and then a host of things. But we'll start with this afternoon's July 16th meeting, and we'll call the meeting to order at 2 o'clock. And then leading off is a Pledge of Allegiance led by Vice Chair Commissioner Gary Edwards, and then approval of the agenda and the approval of the meeting minutes from the previous week. Then we have presentations, the first one being Emergency Services. Olympia Fire Chief Retirement Recognition.
Yes, Commissioners, for your consideration, Kurt Harding, your Emergency Services Director, will give you a little bit of history of Olympia Fire Chief Greg Wright. He will be retiring after 34 years of service. And there will be, present will be representatives from some of the many different fire districts across the county. And as you know, Chief Wright has been, like I said, an incredible person, how he has been dedicated to his career over the last 34 years. So he will be greatly missed because he has not only provided value to the city of Olympia, but also to the region in terms of emergency response and emergency management. So Kurt will give you a little bit of a background, and then it may be some attendees that would like to say a couple words related to Chief Wright.
Anything?
No, sir.
Absolutely, and Greg will be here, yes?
Yes.
Good.
We managed, he'll be escorted, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure, and I've worked with Greg for 34 years as well. What an honorable man, good man. I look forward to that. I'm glad we're doing that. Then we move into the opportunity for the public to address the board. Anything?
I don't have anything. They might probably, some citizens will come.
You aware of anything coming up? You? All right. County Manager's update, follow-up.
Yes, I will follow up on a couple public testimony you received last week. And later on your agenda of this morning, we'll go a little more in detail as to what you've heard and in our proposal as to how I'd like to move forward on that.
Okay. Consent items, Agenda 3. Consent items A, B, C, and D. The first one is the assessor resolution reclassifying a position.
Yes. In items 3A and 3B are from the assessor's office. You reviewed those two items last week. This particular item for your consideration is to reclassify a business applications technician 1 to an appraiser assistant. And this is related to the assessor looking for the opportunity to have an individual who is not necessarily already licensed appraiser to have a training opportunity, and eventually will build into his to support his business. This particular request, in terms of the budget, goes from $5,257 a month to $4,541 a month. That will be a decrease of $716 a month, or just about 14% decrease.
Okay. Anything?
No.
This is part of his succession planning?
Well, the assessor always looks for opportunities as to how he can better manage his office within the context of his budget. And I think you have seen a couple of items related to his business. And it's a combination of addressing the business needs as well as addressing some succession planning as well.
Perfect, yeah. Yes, sir.
No. Good.
Okay. 3B, assessor again.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, on the same outline, this particular proposal for your consideration is to reclassify a personal property analyst to a senior property control analyst. The impact on the budget will be from $5,257 a month to $5,520 a month, an increase of $263 a month, or just about 5%. So if you add the two actions, 3A and 3B, there is a net loss of just about savings of just about $500 a month.
Savings, not loss.
Yeah.
Okay.
Savings.
Anything on that?
Nope.
All
Good.
right. 3C.
You also heard this item, and this is from District Court. And District Court is requesting to add a temporary project position that will be the court assistant 2. They have a duration of June 30, 2020. That's the end date. And the reason behind this, there is a current employee holding that position that is currently absent. And she's in the payroll, but she's in leave. She's not able to come and work. So this particular position is a temporary position to address the needs of district court, and that they expect the current position that this individual is on leave will be resolved hopefully by the end of this year. I am not privy of the details as to why that individual is in leave, but the intent is eventually by early next year, that position will be resolved, and it will be not an increase on that position. It will be zero net impact in terms of number of FTEs in district court. And again, this is just to meet the intent and the needs of the district court for the next, hopefully, at least a year.
Do you have anything on that? Do you, Gary?
No, sir.
I have a question, not delving into the issue, 'cause it's not my business to get into that at this point. But it does say reclass the position with an end date to occur on or before June 30, 2020. That's not a firm date. It could be resolved by the end of the year?
That's the intent. The current position of which this individual who is on leave is holding that position, they're hoping to resolve whatever those issues they have by the end of this year. By having that position until this temporary position to June 30th, just give a little more latitude to resolve that issue.
Okay.
But it well may be that there could be resolved prior to that date.
And this is just a temporary position, so it could be it could last 6 months or 5
It's
months.
a temporary
and it's done.
position. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. 3D Delta voucher list. Did my seatmates have any questions or polls or comments about the voucher? Nope. Good. Okay. Move on to agenda item number 4, Central Services, sealed bids.
Yeah, for your consideration is to authorize the Central Services to call for seal bids for repairs on building number 3 here at the courthouse. As you may recall, there's a leaky roof in district court, and some of the probation officers, they have been living with a tarp above their heads. This project is to address that issue. And as we know it, sometimes it's not just about patching the hole in the roof, because in order to fix that portion of the roof, we need to address some of the HVAC units that are located in that area as well. And that is probably what we're going to do. At some point, we were looking at replacing the entire roof, but it was too expensive. In this case, we're going to be addressing the leaky roof, and as a result, some of the HVAC units need to be upgraded as well.
Anything?
Did I hear something earlier about we've extended the life of the HVAC system longer than it should have been? No?
Where did you hear that? I'm sorry.
Okay, we'll get into it later. Good enough. Thank you.
Remember roughly what the cost of the roof replacement was or is?
We can probably give you an engineer's estimate.
roughly, okay.
What is the cost?
The cost for roof replacement was $900,000.
So just about $1 million to replace the
Yes.
roof. All right.
And of course, rooftop unit, which is leaking, has own price.
Why don't you come to the microphone, please?
Yeah, you're going to have to come up now. I thought it would just be one answer. But it's going to be more expensive than extra buckets.
Oh, it's very expensive and it's out of...
Oh, go ahead. Would you sit down, please?
I'm sorry. Yes,
Vasil, introduce yourself.
my name is Mariusz Kowalewski.
Oh, that's it.
I am the project manager from Central Services working on this roof replacement and rooftop unit replacement project. We narrowed this down to rooftop unit replacement with about 3 feet perimeter around of rooftop unit of roofing material to make sure that flashing and curb details are properly installed. The leak happens in rooftop unit. This is why we have to replace it. And rooftop unit right now is 3 times lifespan in service. So it's
That's
I think
probably
that's what
There you go.
yeah. This is the bottom line.
So about $900,000 to replace it.
We don't go there because we don't spend money on full roof replacement.
Good, yeah.
We're trying to deal with reason for this leak, which is the rooftop unit, which is actually bringing water to the plenum below, and this is how this leak occurs. We did quite extensive testing, and we could, with quite ability to point the water intake to narrow this to rooftop unit and deal with this.
Okay. Any questions?
So I think we went over this last week, but remind me what is the estimated cost of what we're doing instead of the replacement?
Right now, the engineer estimation, because we will wait for bid price, engineer estimation is practically $370,000, in which 220 is for rooftop unit. So installation and rooftop unit total is 370. Of course, this is the engineer estimation, and this is not showing the contingency and taxation in Washington State. So in this point, we are starting bidding, and we will try to find lowest bidder and hope that we'll have good climate in bidding.
Anything further?
How to frame this question is, do we know that, I mean, do we feel that doing this piece of it is, obviously it's old, it's an older situation and there'd be value to replacing the roof, but is there any other aspect of the structure that we're concerned about in the near future?
So, thank you for the question. Talking about structure, of course, we have to make sure that structurally the curb and structural members will be able to withstand this new rooftop unit. But there is, of course, a link to other elements of project like controls or impact on existing ductwork. And with this project, we'll provide solution. So we're covering all those elements. I had a structural engineer on board to review roof curb details, and I had to mechanical engineer to evaluate heating and cooling for whole building. So this project will take care of all those outstanding issues you're seeing.
Gary?
What's the lifespan expected after you make those completions?
That's what I had. Good job. Thank you.
So,
Reading your mind.
Yep.
so 20 years is kind of typical
Okay.
lifespan.
Okay.
Even
20.
15 years is standard. But we'll carry this rooftop unit for sure for such stretch of time.
But just keep in mind that what we're replacing is the HVAC unit that is causing the leak. So although the life expectancy is 15 years, but it's just what we're replacing. We're not replacing the system as a whole,
No.
Got it.
or the whole roof. It's
But
just
the
a
upper
portion
unit.
of that, yeah.
Upper unit, okay.
Is it
So
Marius? How do you pronounce?
Mariusz Kowalewski.
Marius. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Agenda item number 5 is Public Health and Social Services, DSHS Work First Children with Special Needs Program Agreement.
Yeah, last week, I suggested that perhaps this item doesn't need to be on your agenda because of the procurement policy. So I stand corrected on that. It does requires your approval because this is acceptance of a $45,000 from the Department of Health and Social Services at the state. And this is related to for the county to participate on the Work First program through an evaluation of special needs children. And really, this is a request for to authorize the director to accept the $45,000 for this program. And it goes from July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2021. And again, it's a maximum compensation of $45,000.
This is revenue coming in.
This revenue coming in.
Good. Anything? Good, thank you. Agenda item number 6, Emergency Services Home Elevation Project Agreement with Diana L. Bird.
Yeah, you also reviewed this, this item last week, Commissioners. And this is related to back in 2015, flooding related. And we received a grant of just about $215,000. With the intent is to raise homes. They have been prone for flooding during high storm events, particularly on the vicinity of the Chutes Rivers and the Chutes River in this case. So this particular proposal is for you to authorize the director to get into a contractual partnership with Ms. Diana Bird for $96,717 and to raise the home. This is a portion of what it will cost to raise the home, which is located in 18726 Dynamite Drive Southeast in Yale. There is a local match, and the local match will be provided by the property owner. The county will not be spending any local match related to this particular contract. And the Director of Emergency Services is here if you have additional questions.
So you discussed this last week. Was it chewed up pretty
We went over this
substantially?
pretty good.
We discussed it pretty substantially, yeah.
Okay, then. I'm ready to move on. Any further comment on that?
No, sir.
Just, it's always a great approach to be able to do something like this rather than trying to re-engineer rivers that.
Yeah. Okay, got it. Thank you for that. Item number 7, Community Planning and Economic Development, a public hearing.
So let me, this is a new item for you. You did not have the chance to review this last week. So let me walk you through a little bit of a larger context. Early in the year, you added to the development code docket to extend the preliminary plat subdivisions. They have been exposed perhaps by the delays of the pocket gopher impact, meaning there is a lot of developments that have gone through the process of asking for extensions until they find a resolution related to the impact on the Mazama pocket gopher. You did add this to the development code docket early in the year, and the staff is working on that item for your consideration. That particular proposal will not be done until the end of the year. Staff will bring this for your final consideration. So in the meantime, there is a particular development called the Sienna 2 that is stuck right there because the last extension ends on August 1st of this year. So this particular proposal is for you to set a public hearing for July 30th, where you receive public testimony for a proposal agreement with the developer that will extend the subdivision, the Sienna 2. So if for instance, if a particular development lapses on that, let's say August 1st, if no action has been taken, all that investment will be lost because they have to start the process all over again. So it is a financial impact to perhaps the developers and the owners associated with this project. This is not a precedent setting. The board has already taken similar actions on similar properties back in 2012. On their different circumstances, of course, but certainly you have the authority via public hearing to extend any particular development that perhaps has been exposed to delays out of their control. And this is really a proposal that can probably help the developer and the property owners to extend their process. And Brett is here to add additional information if I missed anything on framing the issue.
Thank you very much. Brett Burris with Community Planning and Economic Development. The county manager is correct. Sienna 2 is stuck in between their expiration and when the plat extension work can be completed and approved by the board. The development agreement is a process in the RCWs that affords things such as vesting and development standards to be extended or modified in order to obtain the economic development that a subdivision in this case could provide. The development agreement will be passed through our legal department if you so choose to hold the public hearing in order to make sure that the development agreement coincides with what could be the plat extension approval at the end of the year, or what would benefit this development in this particular case in order to move forward. There's only two options for a development like this. One would be the development agreement. The other would be a bonding of all the improvements of the entire site, which is in the millions at this point. I don't have an exact number, but to support what the county manager says, it is an economic struggle for the developer and the property owner to extend either by bonding or to let the plat expire and start the process all over again.
Do you have anything?
Where is this?
Thank you.
It's in Tumwater, just south of Black Hills High School across the street.
That's in Tumwater city limit?
I believe it's in the UGA.
UGA.
Yeah.
And so we have to do a public hearing in order to amend our development agreement? Or I'm not a little confused. I've never seen this process exactly.
Development agreement is through the RCWs that allows an agreement between development and any jurisdiction to provide an overall determination of the process of what development could look like. It's typical for very large developments, at least in my historical career, where someone wanted to build a 15-building multi-story complex that could not be constructed within the time frames of the Growth Management Act. So they use these tools such as development agreements to modify some of those timelines and development standards in order to achieve the overall goal, which is the development.
So RCW 3670B 200 prescribes the development agreements, and in the states, each development agreement has to be approved after you hold a public hearing, and that is prescribed in the statute.
Can you read that RCW again?
Is RCW 36.70B 200.
All right.
And also on the motion for your consideration is to waive the 20-day public notice and just go with a 10-day public because of the sense of urgency. So it's two items for your consideration this afternoon. Again, is to waive the 20-day public notice to just 10 days and to set the public hearing for July 30th, 3 in the afternoon in this room.
I don't remember how I voted on this one because I know that I remember there were elements of it I really liked and elements I was concerned about, but it's going forward, and it's going to come back to the board, and I would hate for this developer to lose the value of it if that's how it's going to go, because I don't actually know how I'll vote on it. So I guess I'm good with this in terms of keeping the ball in the air for this developer on this particular project.
Gary?
Does this only apply to this one activity that's been held up for whatever reasons? I mean, why is it that we can't extend that, do one hearing and it kind of extend for a period of time others? Why do we need to, or do we need to select out individual activities? Can we do it for everyone in that UGA area?
That is the direction of the board that you provided in terms of adding to the development code docket to do exactly what you're doing. What you're suggesting is to look globally as to how the extensions
Yeah, so
should
it's
extend.
going to be more than just this one development.
As part of your consideration
Potentially.
of the development code docket, yes, later in the year. But in this particular instance, the board needs to address those lapses in the timing on an individual basis, and the instrument is a development agreement.
Okay, I'm good.
So for whatever the delay was, is this development agreement in lieu of a code docket amendment?
No, sir. The goal would be to coordinate at the end the development agreement to be of a specific time, or once the plat extension work is completed. So it is not it's a standalone, in my vision, until the plat extension work is completed.
So it is not an end run around the code docket amendment type stuff?
No, sir.
Okay, and as Romero said, this is not a precedent setting. We've done it before
Back in 2012,
in 12. Does this,
a development agreement, so an instrument.
okay. the
Similar
instrument.
instrument, yeah.
So this is not like opening up Pandora's box to, oh, wow, they're going to do this now. Let's just all jump in and do this.
And I asked the question to staff as to, if obviously this development lapses on the timelines August 1st, and the staff is not going to be coming back to you with the development code proposal by the end of the year. We have 5-6 months. How many, plots may be in the same situation?
That's what I was going to ask.
And this is really the only one that is in that situation at this point.
I thought that's what you were asking too.
So there is no others that might be,
Okay.
because the others could benefit from a potential action that you may take as an umbrella in changing the code.
Good. Thank you, Brett. Anything further?
I'm good.
No? Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. Item number 8, the county manager. We report on stuff, you report on stuff, and then we're done with this afternoon. Now we're going to move on to the Tuesday, July 23rd BoCC meeting. And again, we'll call the meeting to order about 2 o'clock. Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Ty Menser. Approval of the agenda and board meeting minutes from July 16th, not 23rd. I love that song. So that'll be changed. Thank you, Lon. And then presentations, pretrial services, introduction of a new diversion officer.
Yes, Mary Ann Clear, the Director of Pretrial Services, will be introducing Nicole Carbone. She is the new Pretrial Services Diversion Officer. And as you may recall, you approved this position as part of your 2019-2020 biennial budget. And this particular position is funded by the treatment sales tax.
Anything?
No.
I would just maybe ask the benefit of having this person in this position that we end up with is fewer individuals incarcerated. Can you explain that just a little bit? Or?
Yes, in I believe when back in 2015, when the board created the position of the Director for Pretrial Services, I think it started setting the stage as to some of the strategies the county has taken in terms of the overall law and justice. They have been, obviously, pretrial services has been extremely effective to provide individuals with support prior to going to, as opposed to ended up in jail. And also, the Superior Court has already been being proactive as to how they manage, for instance, the 365-day cases. And then you add the coordination between the prosecuting attorneys as well as the Office of Public Defense in terms of what we call the first look approach. So all those strategies is resulting in the reduction on jail population that we have right now. But also, I believe the pretrial services is the victim of their own success, because as you divert individuals for support on the pretrial services arena, increases the caseload they have, and you receive on a monthly basis, the snapshot as to how many cases the pretrial services department manages on a monthly basis. So this is really an attempt from your perspective to address the additional workload. But again, thank you, because it's more of a system benefit than just the pretrial services.
Thank you.
So do you know, Nicole? at all?
Commissioner Menser had a...
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, because I'm still looking it up and doing research. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the vision for this position is a little different. The people that we have are kind of reactive. They're just trying to deal with the caseload and do the check-ins and meet the court requirements. And this is a person that will give us extra capacity to be affirmative, so that there's more people on diversion. They can actually be affirmatively connecting be more proactive and affirmatively connecting those people with treatment services, so that hopefully they're more successful. And yeah, so it's an exciting additional capacity that we'll have within pretrial services.
And I guess in the end, we save money because of the overall population in the jail.
Right, and I think at some point, the board needs to strike a balance, because as we increase caseload to the pretrial services, it's going to be at some point, and I believe Marianne is going to come back with a proposal on your review for next year's budget, perhaps to consider additional resources. Because it really is, and that's where we are. That's what I sit on the pretrial services board, and I keep saying that is the victim of their own success, because they have been extremely effective as to how many cases they'd be able to manage them.
Okay.
So I'm going to guess you don't know much about Nicole Carboni.
In terms of,
Well, Gil Carboni was an Olympia City Council member for a number of years, back in the mid 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, somewhere in there. And I don't know if they're related, but I'll ask her when she gets here next week.
yeah, I wouldn't.
I know she was working in Lewis County. You guys know. Or she was working in Lewis County as a similar work, coordinating.
I think that's a different person.
Oh, okay.
That's Katie.
Oh, I'm confusing our opioid, yes.
Yeah, the opioid, yeah.
I did meet Nicole, but yeah, I'm
I
confusing
think
their backgrounds.
she's a recent graduate from Washington State.
Okay.
All right.
Well, Gil Carboni is well loved.
That's what I
Well
know.
loved, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
But
Next-
certainly next week you'll have the opportunity to ask her questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
And next is pretrial probation week proclamation.
Yeah, for your consideration, for you to proclaim, there's a typo in here, it's the week of July 21st through the 27th. So we'll be revising.
17th through the 21st?
It's from the
17th through the 21st?
No, it's from the 21st to 27th. There is a typo on your
Oh.
agenda.
Okay.
We will fix that for next week.
I thought you were the typo, and I apologize. Okay. Got it.
I'll take that.
Opportunity for the public to address the board. It might be
I'll
bit
follow up
premature.
with that, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah.
agenda item number 3, consent items A through C. The first one is information technology, authorized information services director, advertised for RFP.
And I will recommend this to be a department item. And the reason is at least for the public to hear the importance of this, the Enterprise Resource Planning System, also known as the ERP. You've heard in the past how much work staff has gone through the process to determine what the business needs and the business requirements are for this particular application, which will address the human resources, well, some budget aspects. Where we're looking really is to centralize all the different applications that we have in the county as to how we can probably be effective in terms of information technology. From my perspective, from my point of view, this is probably one of the biggest systems that perhaps the county is going to be embarking on. And I think it will be good for Dennis and perhaps even Robin, who is, I think, is chairing the executive committee of the ERP, to give a perspective as to what this application is going to do. So that's what I'm suggesting, to put as a department level, department item, as opposed to just a consent agenda, because it is important. It is very important for the county. In this proposal before you is to authorize the Director of Informational Technology, IT Department, to go ahead and issue a request for proposals to secure a vendor, to secure a system. And yesterday we had a meeting on the IT committee. And my point related to the ERP was we have shifted fundamentally as to how we purchase applications in the county. In the past, we used to just get perspective from potential vendors. And as you know, sometimes a vendor that tells you a story that perhaps you want to hear. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times that may materialize or may not. So we have shifted fundamentally to take the time to address what the business needs are and develop a very consistent system requirements. So that is what the request for proposals will include. It will be all the business needs that we need, and a vendor will respond as to how they plan to address this business needs. It's a fundamental change really for us as a county. And that way we're going to be more effective in conducting the business, and we know exactly what we're going to be looking for when we select a contractor.
So that will be moved to agenda item for next week.
Yeah,
and we will
department
still
item.
discuss it. Okay. Questions on that?
I know that this has been in the works for a while, but what does something like this cost us in just big numbers, ballpark?
So we're anticipating the total implementation cost.
Robin, will you introduce yourself?
Yes, Robin Campbell, Assistant County Manager. And so total purchase costs, which includes the quality assurance, the backfill time of county staff, and implementation and integration with all our systems, to be up to $4 million.
Oh, hang on. You done? Go ahead.
I know it's
Go ahead.
it's an extreme amount of money,
Whoa.
but when you look at the all of the systems that we're anticipating to cover in that cost, this is not only our financial and our HR systems, but we're looking at replacing Munis, Eden, possibly Questica, possibly OpenGov, NeoGov, CAMS. This is an extensive system that we're looking for, and we're looking for a single system or a coordinated, fully integrated group of systems. So it's an expensive proposition. It's going to cover contracts, grants. We don't have systems that do that today. We're going to get rid of all of our existing timekeeping systems, whatever they may be. So it really does touch every office and department and supports the core services of the county.
Go ahead.
And I suppose, so where we're disjointed now, we're going to bring that all together under one roof, so to
Integrate.
speak.
Yep, fully integrated.
About how long of a time period do you anticipate that's going to
It should
take?
take us about 2 years to fully implement all of the aspects of this system, because you do it in phases. You start with your financials, you put in the HR, you bring in each of the next modules in a phased approach.
Will we have a better ability to connect with our, partner jurisdictions in the county, like, say, law enforcement? Now is not really connected very well, so I'm.
That's a different system, isn't it?
Yeah, but is it going to make it easier in the future to do that?
I would say it depends. It depends on what
Sounds
kind
like a legal
of,
answer.
well,
Yeah.
I had a professor in grad school that said that it depends is the right answer to everything.
Sounds like a lawyer.
Yeah. So it will depend on what kind of data system you're talking about, but we should be able to integrate better to whatever type of system because I think Munis is like 20 years old and Eden is equally old. These are outdated systems, and modern cloud systems have easier integration methods. So it should be better, but it will depend on the kind of data system that you're proposing to connect.
So when you said this will affect every area of county government, I suppose that means that every budget area will be contributing?
Yes, this is being broadly allocated across every office, department, and fund. Just like our current systems are. So yes, every fund will participate in the cost.
And have we earmarked how we're going to locate maybe $2 million in the current expense budget?
We already have set up contributions that we've been making over the past 2 years to the large system IT
Similar to an
reserve.
ER&R?
Yes, it
Okay.
is very similar
Okay.
to ER&R, and we plan, because the cost is more than we anticipated, almost every system in that group is costing more than we thought it would at the time we established the reserve. One of the things that I have talked to you about is the opportunity to finance these large systems, and we'll take the collections over time. We'll just collect a little longer to be able to pay off the bonds.
Okay.
I don't want to presume, but I'm going to ask, when Gary's talking about, when you're talking about the interface with law enforcement, that's predominantly report writing and the public to police reporting and
Record
such?
systems.
Record system, that's completely separate than this. That's a separate item, isn't it?
Maybe something different. That's why I said, it'll depend on what kind of data you're collecting. Like, it won't have a permit module, but it will track the receipts that we take in the permit center.
Okay.
It'll all,
And in going to this program, $4 million, it caused you to choke a bit. But what will it save overall? Is there a cost savings in getting away from Munis and Enos
there
and
will be
Gov
an
and all these other
offset.
ones?
In the long run, it's going to cost more because licensed cloud systems that you pay for every year cost more than on-premises systems. They cost less to set up in the short term and more in licensing. So over the life of the system, you about break even, and these are modern systems. So I don't expect lower cost over time, but I do expect greater efficiency, more functionality, time saving to staff. We're going to cut out shadow systems. Overall, it's going to be a workflow improvement.
But what I'm hearing is it will overall save some money and/or effort when systems go down and the amount of effort
Yeah.
by staff putting into these things and not talking with each other.
Right. I guess, though, that what I would say to you is, as a budget person, there's no one place you'll be able to look at in the budget and cut costs.
Okay.
Due to these savings are going to be widespread
Jeez.
time savings that people take that time and devote to other
Okay,
things.
go ahead.
I think the
Yeah,
goal
more.
is efficiencies as well.
Absolutely.
And that's where you're going to see the
Better
big
technology.
savings.
Okay.
And we'll avoid errors because at this point we jump from system to system to system. And as a result, there's always an opportunity to have some errors within the process.
I will also say that financial staff spend a lot of time right now, given just the 4 basic finance systems, Munis, Eden, Questica, and OpenGov. We spend hours reconciling and ensuring that the numbers are the same. In a fully integrated system, that's something we won't have to do. So
That's
my
exactly what I'm
staff
looking
alone
for.
is
Yeah.
going to save hours right there.
That's what I'm looking for. And that's a documentable cost savings.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And this item, again, will be moved to department items, and we'll ask these same questions next week.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. 3B, central services.
For your consideration is for you to authorize the Central Services Director to do a final acceptance of the project number 25536, which is included the change in the Delta controls of in public health. This procedural contractual requirements when we issue a contract to any potential vendor or contractor, they need to put retainage. And the retainage really serves a purpose that after the contractor meets the specifications of the contract, we go through what we call the checklist. When everything is met and everything is satisfactory in terms of the specifications, we issue the contract. Then at that point, we accept a final acceptance of the contract and we release the retainage. That is the action before you in this particular project.
Okay. Questions?
What are Delta controls?
Well, Delta controls, let me read that's the existing in energy management control systems in public health that it was installed in 2002. And this project replaced that to allow more efficient control of their environment.
Anything, Gary?
Is there a cost associated with this?
No, we just give the money we retained.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Good, okay. Done with that one. And then 3C is the voucher list, and we'll see what that looks like when he gets here. Agenda item number 4, department items, IT, authorized $7,000 plus.
Yes, this
For a
may
project.
be somewhat of minute action for your consideration. But back in September 4, 2018, the board authorized to go ahead and do a cabling project and juvenile and the family juvenile campus. So we encounter a couple of overruns during construction, which result in an overrun of $7,736. The reason that it's coming before you on the action of September 4, 2018, it didn't include any amendments or addendums to extend the contract. And we just want to make sure that we wrap that off. And as you consider any similar items now, we add up to 10% of this didn't include that item to consider overruns.
Why did it not include that?
It
Seemed
was
odd.
just an oversight.
Okay, all right. Anything?
This looks like a little less than 5%.
Anything?
No.
But it goes beyond the maximum
Right.
contract amount that you authorized.
Understood.
Got it, thank you. Item number 5, central services. Interim director to sign. Go ahead. That's long.
Yeah, this is for your consideration, is to enter into a 5-year tenant agreement, a lease agreement with the Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization. I believe they changed names, so we need to update that. For the lease of the triage facility, which is located on 3285 Ferguson Street Southwest in Tumwater. The monthly payment for that facility is for 2019 is $13,084.75. And the proposal is to have a 5-year lease agreement with the BHO with an opportunity to extend for another 5. The future lease amounts will be negotiated, and those will be brought to you as part of the budget process. So at this point, for your consideration, you will authorize the 5-year lease agreement, and also you will authorize the lease payments for 2019. The lease payments, and this amount has already been included on the budget where you approved back in 2018.
Go ahead, I'm doing math in my head.
Is there an escalator cost in there for cost of living and such?
So, and that's what is a little bit different because in a yearly basis, it will be negotiated at that time. So the 5-year lease agreement does not have an escalation for future years because every year will be negotiated on a yearly basis. So the only thing that you approve at this point is the 5-year lease agreement and the payments for 2019.
And so 2020
Will come back a
again,
different,
might be 1% or 2 bit higher.
might be a
or
little bit
whatever.
different.
Okay.
And that has been a good partnership with the BHO as to how that lease payment should work.
I think we looked at this on the other end, didn't we?
I assume that you
Yes,
probably
we
looked
did.
at.
BHO meeting.
And this takes us through 2029 if we were to do the extension, I believe, is the 10 years.
If you exercise the additional 5-year extension.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we have this in as revenue already?
Yes, already included
Already.
on the revenue. In 2019, yes.
Good, we're done with that.
Yeah.
Eliminate.
And
Agenda one.
if there is a change for the 2020 rates, those will come back to you as part of the normal midterm adjustment
Okay.
for the budget.
So agenda item number 6, county manager resolution of intent.
Okay, so I'm going to spend a little time on this, if I may. I'm going to ask probably Shelley and Tom to come. So the 2019 legislature passed substitute House Bill 1406. And therefore, the House Bill 1406 authorizes local jurisdictions to use a portion of the state's allocations of the sales and use tax. And there is a little bit of nuances within this context because the intent of the legislature is to encourage affordable and supportive housing. So it's very narrow, the scope of work, so what the money can be allocated to be used on this particular resolution, this per your consideration. So my understanding of the House Bill, Substitute Bill 1406, had a maximum of a 0.0146% of the sales tax. It's not an additional sales tax. I just want to make sure that it's not an additional sales tax to the citizens. We just take that percentage out of the state's allocation that is already going through. So it's a reduction to the state's sales tax use. So there is a couple of steps that the county needs to take. One is the Board of County Commissioners needs to pass a resolution of intent to utilize this particular tax opportunity. But also the cities, they need to take a couple of actions. For instance, if the board decides to implement this resolution, and I have copies for you to distribute it, I've been working with Elizabeth on this, you could exercise the full extent because that the law allows for the county to take the full extent advantage of this. That will be the 0.0146%. But also, if the cities like to exercise the same opportunity, they need to pass a similar resolution of intent, but they can only access half of that. That will be a 0.0073%. Okay, it's a little complicated. Unless a jurisdiction has already implemented what they call a housing funding. So the city of Olympia is the only jurisdiction that if they like to exercise that, they can access the full 0.01 0.0146%. So imagine this. You have the county exercise this resolution, and you access the 0.0146%. The City of Olympia come exercise the same. So the county will not take that within the City of Olympia. That will not be. The City of Lacey, let's say, comes and has the resolutions of intent. They can only access half of that, the 0.0073%, right? Then the county access the other half within that jurisdiction, unless the City of Lacey would like to go with a home fund type of initiative prior to July 2020, I believe. So those are the conditions. Whether the City of Lacey or Tumwater will go through the same process the City of Olympia went a couple of years ago to establish the home fund is yet to be seen. So that is really my understanding with how the resolution works. Again, is the 0.0146% countywide. If a jurisdiction takes a formal action to access that individually, they can only access half of that, except for the City of Olympia. They can access the full amount because they already have a home fund. They're going to stop there.
Good grief.
Yeah.
I'll get to you. Go ahead.
So the county's fundamentally treated differently than a city.
Yes.
And we don't, we had the opportunity to do that kind of home fund initiative, and we didn't do it, but we're not penalized in the same way that the cities are.
Are qualified.
One of the qualifying taxes is the treatment sales tax. So we have that in place.
Oh, okay.
There are like
so
four
we're not treated differently than the cities. It's just that we qualify because we
in a different way.
in a different way. Okay, and so we're going to be able to take this share, this piece of 0.014 for the unincorporated county, and potentially jurisdiction by jurisdiction additional pieces of theirs
Half
to the
of
extent that they, up to half if they don't pursue a home fund.
Yep.
I'll just call it a home fund because I know what that is.
Yeah.
And this resolution that we have to pass in order to trigger this is that would, and that I said, so in one sense we are different because the county has this opportunity the county has the opportunity to have the shares of the I guess we call it lower jurisdiction, the cities, if they don't opt in with. What if a city doesn't opt in at all?
The county can access that under their own jurisdictions. And that's how the proposed resolution is being drafted.
So if we express our intent, then all of this money is going to go somewhere. The full 100% of this piece is going to go somewhere. It's just a matter of how much goes to the county versus the cities.
Yes, that is correct.
But theoretically, if we didn't do that, then the cities would be treated individually, and there'd be no sweep aside from an incorporated county sales tax.
That's right.
Okay.
So,
I think I got it. That's pretty.
So if you go back to the draft resolution in yellow on the first page, I think I addressed a little bit your discussion. And let me read the proposed whereas. This Thurston County intends to use these tax monies in collaboration with the cities as means to fully leverage the resources under House Bill 1406. And that really is related to, if you go back on the last page of the handout, the options, whether
Which handout? I'm sorry.
this handout that Shelley just gave you,
Okay.
on the last page, Commissioner, this handout.
This one, thank you.
So so here you have somewhat of a breakout of how much a jurisdiction can receive based on the different nuances of the full advantage or half of the advantage. in a yearly basis. So if you look in terms of individual allocations, there is no that much money. We can probably start addressing the intent of the legislation on an individual basis. And in this case, the legislature allows to look regionally as to how we can maximize and leverage those funds. To the extent the legislature allows to bond those revenues to make an investment right away. And just to give you an example, if we were to assume the overall across the county will have could generate, let's say, $600,000 across all the region in terms of this taxation. Over the next 20 years, that's the sunset date of this piece of legislation, we could probably be generating close to, I don't know, $12 million, right? And if we spend $600,000 a year over the next 20 years, what is it that we can do in terms of an impact related to this particular legislation? Or we can probably commit with the other jurisdictions as to how we can bond, do an initial impact, start looking to build affordable housing or perhaps low-income housing. And that is probably going to be perhaps an opportunity as to how the county can take the lead across the region as to how we can maximize this particular funding opportunity. And that's how the proposed resolution states that. That is the intent. And anyways, did I miss anything?
No, very well done.
Anything more? at
Can
this
you
point?
explain this table a little better, just so I really understand what the numbers mean in terms of this discussion?
Yeah, so this is from the Department of Revenue, estimations for based on their 2018 sales tax collections.
Yeah.
So it means, the first page shows by county, and it shows that for Thurston County, at the full .0146 amount, there's $810,000 that would have been retained by Thurston County. And then on the back page is the breakdown by jurisdiction. So unincorporated Thurston County would have an expected collection of $131,415. For example, the city of Lacey, if the county was only able to collect half of the full amount, the .073, that would be equivalent of $97,872 based on 2018 revenue. If we collected the full amount, it would be the $195,744.
Okay, but like, so then for Olympia, we know we're not collecting the 326 because they already passed a home fund.
Correct.
So that's like, it would be 16, no, it would be, we wouldn't collect anything
We
for
wouldn't be able to
Olympia.
collect
You won't collect
anything
anything.
of Olympia's share.
But they would have that money
Right.
that we could potentially work with them.
And
That's assuming Olympia passes their statement of intent that they
Yeah.
intend to take these funds.
Oh, okay. If they didn't,
Then we.
the missed opportunity, then the county will take advantage of that. And those numbers will vary depending on how the different options the cities may or may not take. But again, I strongly suggest the commissioners to consider this as a regional basis in order to maximize this opportunity the legislature has provided to address affordable housing and supportive housing.
so what's the number at what's the 24 million?
Sorry, that's a summary for the whole state. So we
That's
just
the
pulled out.
statewide number.
Shouldn't that number be on the previous page? Because you've got all the city that's a subset of Thurston County's number.
Yeah, that's a,
Just ignore that last line.
Okay,
yeah.
that was, okay.
No, we're not going to be able to collect 24 million.
Yeah. Okay, Gary, go ahead.
On the resolution,
And I will draft a final
A new-
draft.
new resolution.
No, a final draft. This is the draft that I've been working on. Everything is I believe, in place. There's a couple of questions that I need to answer and work with Elizabeth. Shelley's going to review this, provide me some feedback. As soon as I have a final draft, I'll put it in your desk. Hopefully by the end of tomorrow, Thursday morning, you have the opportunity to review that before next Tuesday.
What is 60% of the county's medium income? I mean, it's in the resolution, it says that's who it's meant to assist.
And that's
What's
based
the
on
dollar?
household size.
Yeah, so what's the
it varies
dollar
based
amount?
on household size. That's gonna be for a family of 4. 100% median income is around $80,000, so it's, for a family of 4, it's approximately $50,000. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but it's in that range. I can get those.
So if their family income with a family of 4 is less than $50,000 a year, they would become potentially eligible for some assistance through this program. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct, yes.
And the criteria as to what that assistance looks like is up to this board to make that determination?
Well, that is, and again, the whereas highlighted in yellow
Yeah.
is highlights perhaps the intent. That perhaps we need to be looking regionally as to how we can maximize this in coordination with the cities. As you know, Commissioner Hutchins is part of this yet-to-be-named group where we're looking as to homeless, affordable housing, and the upcoming meeting is scheduled for this Thursday. Perhaps that may be the right setting in which these conversations can occur. So certainly is up to the board's purview to determine how you would like to exercise the expenditures of this particular opportunity. This is just a proposal from a staff for you to consider a regional approach and not necessarily a local approach.
Is this earmarked, if you had to pick something out, it's about affordable housing as much as anything, though, right?
Affordable and supportive housing.
And in my review of what's going on here in Thurston County, almost 25% of the cost of housing is mandated fees and permit fees and such by the government. So would we be able to lower some of those fees so that we could assist people when they're building something, or
No, under this
it
taxation,
has to go to an individual?
this
or a
is
family?
specific to address investments in affordable and supportive housing.
Yes.
This is not intended, as I understand the new law, to subsidize any permitting process. No.
But that's driving the high cost of housing.
I may not necessarily disagree with you, but the intent of the law doesn't allow you to do that.
But it's also not, it's also not, if my understanding, it's not a voucher program where we're giving out money to families, which is what you were suggesting.
Yeah, that's where I'm kind of
I
going.
think it's
That's
about
my
us,
concern.
It's about us constructing.
Ideally,
It could be used for rental
yeah.
assistance.
It could be
Okay.
used for rental assistance.
So we have that
what-
choice.
You do have that opportunity because we do have programs in our public health social services that you can probably add to those programs in order to take advantage of that. The question that I have for the board is, do we want to take this opportunity to just up a little bit some of those programs, or start thinking regionally as to how we can have a greater impact to the community? That's really the two options perhaps that you may have.
I mean, this could be looked at some point. I mean, we're trying to develop a county service, if you will. I don't know if you want to call it a welfare or what you want to call it. It's some kind of an assistance. If I'm going to be involved in something like that, I want to make sure, or at least influence this process to where we eliminate any abuse. And that's where I'm coming from. I see so many families in need, but they don't prioritize their spending very well. You know, there's the garbage cans full of whiskey bottles, or, you know, whatever. And I'm just trying to figure out a way that if we're going to do assistance, I want to assist people, but I don't want those people to abuse the system. And so that's kind of why I'm asking these questions. So. But we're not there yet.
No,
to that
this is
point.
this
Conversation for
resolution
another
of
day.
intent, and again, is an intent, and the law is very prescriptive as to some of the steps that any legislative body needs to take in order to access those funds.
And we have a
this is
time
the-
limit, correct?
Yeah, and this is the first step. Is a resolution of intent, and then next year we'll bring back an actual action when we have a little more information as to how you could probably consider.
But we want to get in on the time frame so that we don't miss out.
This is the resolution of intent that does that, because that's the first step.
Okay.
So my
Yeah, you
question.
have- sorry.
Go ahead, Tom.
I'll say you have 6 months to pass this resolution of intent, and then you have 1 year to pass the implementation. So it's June 28th of 2020 is when you need to kind of go through the implementation process.
But the sooner that you take action that Ramiro
In-
proposes
in-
next week will help us to,
Because you set the stage, and then the other jurisdictions will have to exercise their options. So this is really is taking the county leadership on this regional approach.
Do they also have 6 months? The same 6 months?
Yes. And I believe the city of Tumwater is contemplating taking an action the next week or two. I haven't heard about the city of Olympia, and I have not heard about the city of Lacey, but I understand they're planning to exercise this as well.
This House bill summary, this was handed out. It says encouraging investment in affordable and supportive housing. Is this our wording or the state's?
That's our interpretation of the law.
Okay. I just thought it was how nice they're encouraging it by not giving us more money, by saying whatever you get, you can divert it. But this is not an increase in tax.
No.
Correct.
I
However-
want to thank you for clarifying this. This is not an increase in sales tax to any citizen in the county, or perhaps across the state, as a result of this bill.
It's just diverting.
It's just taking
money
a
we
portion
receive.
of the
No, not that we receive, what the state
the
The
state.
receives.
It's just the state. It's not. So it really is. Is the state is what it gets less money
Right.
as a result of the sales tax.
So this says that in this handout towards the bottom, it says the county or cities imposing the tax. That leads me to think we're imposing a tax. That's exactly what it says. The county imposing the tax may issue general obligation. Explain that to me.
That means that any county or city that says yes to this, that's the imposition of this tax. The county will receive the money, the state will not. So that's where it's a net zero impact to the taxpayer. And if we're bringing this revenue in, the legislation allows us to use this money to pay general obligation bonds that you may choose to issue.
Okay, so just reading at face value,
Bond payment.
Imposing is not the right verb.
imposing the tax.
And I developed that, I was trying to mimic the language in the actual House bill
Okay.
Yeah.
to be consistent, even though I had the same problem with that language, but I was trying to use the same language that's in the bill, so that's why.
So which one are you looking at?
We're looking at the summary that Shelley handed out, and we're looking
You
at
may want to look at this resolution.
the last sentence
Yeah,
on it.
this resolution
But someone's
proposed
going to
that.
pick this item up and this line, and they're going to spam it out there and
No, that's good
communicate to
clarification.
the public.
Impose the tax.
So, yeah, so this, and the whereas, in the third whereas of the proposed resolution, that's what you find, the maximum rate imposed may not exceed 0.1, so it's a little more prescriptive.
Well, the very last whereas on the page actually says, will be credited against the state sales tax, will not result in a higher sales tax
Right.
within the county, and so it clarifies that.
Just clarified,
And
yeah.
the bill does say impose.
Yeah.
That is the
Yeah.
legal language.
Okay.
So
And-
this resolution clarifies a little more in detail.
So when, if and when we do this, where or which area loses money that we would normally use that money for? Is there,
We
No,
don't lose
we don't
any
lose
money
any money.
anywhere.
No,
It's
we're not losing
an
it.
increase to the county and the cities.
okay.
This 24 million that Commissioner Menzer asked about, that's how much, if every county and city imposed this tax across the state of Washington, the Washington State General Fund would lose $24 million.
If we imposed the tax?
Yes.
Okay.
So
That's why you hung up on that, imposing the tax.
So no increase in sales and use tax to the citizens of Thurston County,
Okay.
and no reduction in revenues
To other
to the
areas.
county in terms of the sales and use tax, and in fact, it's an increase in revenue to the county and jurisdictions within as a
All right.
result of this bill.
And I just have two more questions, and then I'll jump to you, and that is, if in the utopian world, everybody's housed, oh my gosh, look, it's amazing. How do we stop this? How do we opt out of it and say we're done? Is there a way to get out of this if we wanted to down the road, years down the road? Or needed to?
The legislation has a sunset date of 20 years.
20? Okay.
But the legislative authority, you have the option to exercise or not this option at any time. However, if the option is to bond some of the revenues for us to perhaps construct low-income housing, then you will not have the option because you're committing the revenues for the next 20 years to pay the bond.
Okay. I'll get to my last question after you. Go ahead, Pat.
I just wanted to, just in trying to clarify, make sure I understand the workings. You said if all the counties and cities opted in, it would be 24 million to the state, but it's really not the cities. If all the counties opted in, then that full 24 million would go to the county. So it doesn't matter.
Whether the cities opt in or
Yeah.
not, that's
Okay.
absolutely true.
Okay, I just want to make sure I got
Yeah.
that.
But some counties may not exercise.
Right.
And so the
But if
24
the counties all took action in giving the state of county finances,
that
you
will
know,
be
that's a
that will be the
probability,
impact. Yes.
then you'd have the full impact to the state.
Correct.
And then the cities' decisions would just carve out the allocation of that 24 million.
Right.
Anything further?
Well,
Can I just
okay,
clarify
go
something?
ahead, Tom.
Sorry, I want to make sure there's not confusion. The cities do have the ability, even though, for example, the city of Lacey has not exercised a qualifying tax. If they don't pass a home fund, they cannot capture the full 0.016%. However, the city of Lacey can elect to take action to take their half
Yeah, the half,
of percentage.
yeah.
So the city of Lacey could elect to take half of the amount, and then Thurston County would get the other half. So I just want to make sure it's clear that the city of Lacey and the city of Tumwater and all the other jurisdictions have the ability to say, we want to take our 0.5% because we don't have a qualifying tax, which would allow the county to capture the second half. They can't capture the full amount unless they pass a qualifying tax. Does that make sense? Is that?
No, it makes sense. I'm just making the point
God.
that if all the cities decided to take it, it still wouldn't be the full amount because there'd be unincorporated county area. But if all the counties decide to take it, then that full 24 million is
Right.
swept because the cities are
across
just
the state.
subsets of the
Yeah.
county land.
Yeah, across
And the
the state.
counties can basically control the total, that the total amount is diverted, or whatever we want to call it.
There may be, it's possible that there are counties somewhere in the state of Washington that have not imposed one of these qualifying taxes. So,
Right.
you know, there's a lot of ifs there, but we know what's happened in our own county.
Yep.
But you're right, that will be the full impact if all
Yeah.
that is in place.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything further?
I'm just wondering, so the state isn't being too benevolent because they're actually collecting $170 billion. And they're giving us a pittance.
Yes.
No,
That's true.
No, okay.
no, that is not correct.
Okay, tell me what's
So
correct on
this
that.
table says that there were taxable sales
Yeah.
in the
Taxable
amount
sales.
of $170 billion.
Right.
The tax was imposed upon.
Against that.
Right, so sales in the state of Washington added up to 170 billion. The state of Washington collects, I think their share is 6.5 cents on the dollar. So if we did the math, we'd know how much the state collected. Now, 24 million is still a very small share of what the state collects because we'll get 0.0146 and they get 6.5.
Yeah.
So it's still a very small share, but it's not out of 170 billion.
That's why I tongue-in-cheek said, encouraging investment. There's not much of an encouragement. It's something, but I didn't know if that was our wording or the state's.
I believe that's the state's word.
Yeah, I believe it is.
Just if as a final question, I mean, with our housing folks sitting in front of us, you feel, I'm guessing that you feel that this is a good move for us to express our intent and try to use this money for what we can use it for.
Yes, this is an excellent. Yes, this is an excellent opportunity that the county has.
Is this money able to be used to leverage more dollars, say, from feds or whomever, just saying, well, we are collecting this or that?
Yes, in that if it is used to develop affordable housing, and that money is granted to perhaps a nonprofit organization, housing developer, or the housing authority of Thurston County, as an example, then whoever that organizational sponsor is could pursue other funds, such as through HUD or
Right.
the Washington Housing Trust Fund, other kinds of low-income housing tax credits, things like that.
Not aware of any restrictions that would stop us from using this as match.
Okay, that's what I was wondering about. How about ADUs? Are we any farther along on ADUs? Because if we did have the ability for ADUs, we could actually affect affordable housing.
That's a different,
But I know, but I mean, are we making headway? It's housing, I mean.
That's part of your development code docket.
Yeah.
And you receive a brief update, I believe, a couple of weeks ago on that. If you like, we can provide you an additional update as to where we are on that. And they expect to bring all the development code docket items for your consideration by the end of the year.
Okay.
anything further on this?
No.
So this, yes, go ahead,
I
Robin.
would just like to comment on one of Commissioner Mentzer's questions on, is this a good move? One of the things that we hear from the legislature when we go and tell them that we need help in the counties is that
Have you
the
done this?
counties don't take advantage of all of the opportunities that the legislature has offered us. So here's an opportunity that they've given us to generate more funds to use in our county. We don't want this to be one more thing that they can say, we gave you something, you didn't use it.
No, really,
From
there's
my
no,
point of
no
view.
reason not to
point,
use
yeah.
this.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So my final question is for my seatmates. This is going to come back on Tuesday, July 23rd. Is there any information, additional information you'd like staff to have presented to you that you didn't get today?
No, I'm still going to vote for it,
Yeah,
even though I'm not satisfied.
that's fine, but is there any additional information
I'm good.
needed?
And I will give you a final draft of the resolution
Okay.
by the end of this week, so at least you have an opportunity to review it before you take an action. Consider
right.
taking an action next week.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you.
Now we're moving
Thank
on to 6B, and that's the ballot measure for emergency communication system.
Yes, Commissioners, for your consideration is to pass an ordinance where you can to put a ballot measure for the November 5th, 2018, and that is related to the TCOM 911. And this is again exercising an additional half of a tenth of a percent. And this is the result of a new legislation that allows to exercise that. And the intent of this ballot measure, if passed by the voters, is to revamp and redo the communication systems that we have here in the county. So let me take you back to the derailment that occurred back in December 2017, where first responders from Pierce County and Thurston County responded to the derailment, and it became extremely apparent and difficult as to how the first responders communicate among themselves. Pierce County has a digital system. Thurston County has an analog system. And the communication between the first responders were extremely difficult. We need to have an individual in the middle to do the translation of the communications, which it created an issue as to how the first responder needs to respond, communicate among themselves. This is really the intent. You have already received some briefings from the Executive Director of TCOM 911, which is he's here. If you want to come, please. And this has already, there's a couple of steps related to this particular measure before can be put in front of the voters. First, the board, the TCOM 911, needs to pass a resolution, which they did, requesting the Board of County Commissioners to put this on the November ballot. And also, each of their jurisdictions who are participants on the interlocal agreement with TCOM 911 needs to affirm the terms and conditions of that interlocal agreement. The Board of County Commissioners on June 25th, you affirm the terms and conditions of that agreement. We receive also affirmation of that agreement from many jurisdictions. I think we're still waiting for a couple of those. So this draft resolution is still in draft until we know what the latest and greatest. So those are the two elements that we're waiting for you before you can consider taking this action. And there's a timeline related to this. If you would like to put this on the November 5th, 2019 ballot, then it needs to happen. It needs to give Keith a little bit of time to submit this resolution, this ordinance to the auditors in order to make it to the November 5th ballot, which the deadline for that is August 6th of 2019. This is really is a little bit of a long journey that Keith and myself has gone through this before we came to this position. And again, if you would like to add anything related to this.
Sure, very good recap, thank you. Just an update.
Keith, who might you be?
I'm sorry, I'm Keith Llewellyn, the Executive Director at TCOM 911. Thank you for that recap. Just an update on where we are today with the affirmation from the intergovernmental agreement with TCOM by the jurisdictions in Thurston County. We are at 100% compliance with the exception of two cities, Olympia and Lacey, and we are on their schedules in the next 2 weeks at their council meetings. So we've been diligently working to gather those affirmations and have them from all the fire districts as well as the other cities. So we're there. And other than that, I'd entertain any questions or help your understanding.
Why do we not have a public hearing about this?
We discussed that. I don't know if you may remember, probably a month ago, we went through this conversation with the prosecuting attorneys, and because this is a tax, the board doesn't have to hold a public hearing. It's a little bit different. So that question was asked early in the process, and I worked with Elizabeth just to make sure that it's not required a public hearing. Because if it was a required public hearing based on the timelines, it would have gone beyond the August 6th date.
And it certainly would now.
Yeah.
Okay, anything further on that?
So the courthouse, for example, we did a public hearing. That's a tax issue.
This is a sales tax. The other one is a property tax.
So because it's a sales tax,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
subject to that requirement.
That is correct. That is
We
my
could do a
understanding.
public hearing if we had enough
If you
time.
choose, if you as a board, you can have public hearings on just about every single action that you would like, really.
Well, if
That's
it
by
wasn't for
choice.
the timeline, I would be insistent upon that.
Yes,
But
and
know
I
the
agree with
pressure
that.
we're under to get this on the ballot.
At least from the administrative point of view of the county, I wanted to facilitate the resolution that TCOM 901 presented to you, and facilitate in terms of the timelines in order to meet.
The auditor's deadline.
Yeah.
All right.
Gary?
I'm curious, at what point am I going to get my 911 pin when I write a, what, $100 check to
I'll
support
give you
this
one
concept?
right now if you want it.
No, okay. No.
I have a question.
That
you
was a
said-
joke, by the way. That was a joke. For the record, we're not asking any gifts.
You said you received, Keith, 100% compliance from all the jurisdictions with the exception of Olympia and
Lacey.
Lacey?
We're on their agendas, yes.
Okay, you're on the agenda, and, but do we anticipate any roundabouts, speed bumps, hiccups?
No,
No?
sir.
Okay,
No, sir.
that's all I have. Any further? Nope.
I guess I'd just point out I abstained from that portion of the meeting because I knew that I would be on this board voting on it. So
Okay,
So most likely the seventh whereas on the first page will change, and that is where it speaks about the affirmation
okay.
based
in
on
here?
the new
Correct.
information.
Yeah, I read that this morning. Very good.
I don't know if we have that, do we?
You should have it. I apologize if you don't have it. But I'll give you a copy.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you, Keith. You're done.
Thank you.
And the rest of this meeting then will be dealt with at the time for the July 23rd meeting. So now it's 10:31, and I'm going to round down to 10:30. We're going to take a 15, that's 1 5-minute break. And so we'll be back at 10:45. That's a 14-minute break, yeah. 10:45, thank you. Lights, camera, action. All right, welcome back. It's still July 16th, and we're finishing up with the work session. And now we're to the part of the agenda of proclamations and awards. And now I'm going to turn to the clerk of the board, La Bonita Bomar.
Good morning again.
Good morning.
La Bonita Bomar, and we have under new application for the boards and commissions. First of all, excuse me, let me back up. Under proclamations and awards, other than the pretrial services for August 23rd, I have none other to discuss at this time.
Okay. Any questions on the proclamations?
No, sir.
No.
No? Okay.
For boards and commissions,
Uh-huh.
new application for the Citizen Commission on Salaries for elected officials. We have Karen White. Karen White is for the organized labor. In your packet, you will see her application and, her application and an email from Ruth Elder, who is staff to that board. This is just for your review today. No action is expected to be taken at this right away. It's not an urgency.
Is this,
Go ahead.
is this a lottery person?
No, this is a particular position that the county commissioners will review and appoint.
Okay. That's
And I read this morning, and the person that was in this position has stepped down,
Yes.
and Karen White is being replaced or being suggested to be replaced.
Yes.
But it says here that she's currently on the Washington Citizens Commission on salaries for elected officials. Is that something different?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I don't know the difference. But what I can speak to is that ours is for the Thurston County.
Yeah, this says Washington Citizens Commission. Okay. Any questions?
I guess I'd just like an answer to that. I believe what it is the state has a commission
Yeah,
as well.
it's the state
That's what I'm
level.
guessing, yeah.
But I guess I'd like to know that for sure.
One of the emails said that there's no, somewhere it said that there was no conflict between being able to be on the two at the same time. For
Right.
what that's worth.
And I see is her completed application for the Thurston County Salary Commission rather than just the Washington Citizens Commission.
Yes.
So I'm presuming it's a state, but I hate to presume.
Right.
But I'm okay. I'm okay with her as a replacement, representing labor. Any questions regarding Karen?
No, but I don't think she's representing labor, is she?
Yeah, it's the organized labor
Yep.
seat. We have, our 4 seats are designated, right? We have a legal one, business,
Business.
labor, and
Okay, I'm good.
Or she represents labor because
I mean,
this
I'm good
person
with
stepping
her, too.
down represented labor.
Okay, I see, yep.
Yes, sir, Romero.
You received an email from the Fair Board, from a Fair Board member. And I will bring this item for your discussion next week after Josh Cummins comes back from vacation.
Which one are you talking
Along
about?
with other items that perhaps the Fair Board is
Board.
planning to do.
I actually got 2 emails. I don't know
Sorry,
if you got the second
hang
one.
on, I thought we were still on the Citizens Commission, and that's all? We don't talk about historic or area
Oh,
agency
sorry.
on aging?
Sorry.
That's okay. I thought, wait a minute. We're okay with all those? Judy Stratton and Daniel Graves?
I thought we went through, didn't we go through Judy and get something back from Area Agency on Aging already?
We made an appointment to the Area Agency on Aging. This is a new.
This is a new one.
Yes, sir.
Has this been through the Area Agency on Aging process yet?
They have received it. I have not heard back from
Oh,
staff.
okay, let's give them a little time.
Yes.
Yeah, this is
Please.
brand new. Okay, got it.
This was received last Sunday.
Yep.
So we're waiting on the Area Agency on Aging. And Historic Commission, Daniel Graves, we're okay with this, this gentleman?
In your packet, you will see that Cammie Peterson, who is the staff person to the Historic Commission, has said that he has attended the last 2 meetings of the Historic Commission, and he would be a great addition. And that comes again from Cammie Peterson, and she's the staff person to that particular
Yeah, I see that. Good,
commission.
okay.
And it's Commissioner District, I see from Commissioner District 1.
He is.
We have a lot of vacancies on this one, so
Yes, we do.
I would be inclined to try to fill this, at least one.
Oh, I like that he's involved with Together and Clubhouse and Olympia Parks. Because they need, Olympia Parks needs people. All right, thank you for that. Agriculture Advisory Board. And so now we get down to the Fair Board. Go ahead, Romero, please.
Sorry.
Thank you, sir.
You receive an email from a Fair Board member, and it was related to the interactions among the 4 members, and I think at the last meeting. So I will bring this copy of that email. You say you receive another email from a
I
different
got
board
2
member?
from 2 members.
Oh, different members? Okay.
Basically saying this, telling the same tale,
If you could-
very disturbing tale.
If you could share that, that would be.
Which one did you get, so I can send you the right
From
one?
Ms. Shipley.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also got one from Ms. Zimmerman.
Okay.
And I'll send that along.
Okay, and, but I wanted to have Josh to be part of the conversation, and he's on vacation this week, so next week. And also, there is some requests by the Fair Board as to how they like to probably purchase or do some improvements on the fairgrounds. That we need to work through a process because certainly that is a public works, is a county facility, so they need to follow a procurement process they will have in place. But more to come on that next week.
Okay.
Okay.
No, I've been in contact with them too, so
Okay.
I know we have an issue
That's
to
all
deal
that I-
with.
That's it?
Yes,
Thank you, Law, very much.
thank you.
Takes us to PIO check-in, and Megan Porter's out, but we have Brian Dominique here.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Brian Dominique, Public Information Officer here at Thurston County. Just a few quick updates. We have 3 courthouse information videos working on right now. I have a PowerPoint presentation that's going through the review process and an informational court video that we're making edits to right now. I'm hoping those will be ready at the end of this week for the review process, and then we can get them out as early as next week. And then also the Pancake Breakfast on August 3rd is coming up at the Thurston County Fairgrounds from 8:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. So I encourage the public to attend that. And in that same vein, the fair is July 31st through August 4th, and we are working with Thurston County Fair on getting information out about that. And ticket sales are on sale now online. People can find information about that on our website and on our social media. Pending any questions, that's all I have.
Yes, but I'll turn to my seatmates first.
Is there any benefit to the citizen buying ahead of time? Do they get like a 10% break or anything?
There's a discount
Okay.
if you buy ahead of time.
Good.
I think it's a fair pass is $10 to $21 depending on the age, and that gets you access to the fair all week.
Okay, good, thank you.
Questions?
Did that Connections episode drop yet?
Oh, thank you.
I haven't seen it.
That will go out today. We had a delay in the review process, do some editing, so that will get released this afternoon.
Okay.
So going back to the Commissioner's Breakfast, this would be your first, Ty. And this is a community breakfast. It's come one, come all, eat as much as you want, eat your weight in pancakes, correct?
Yes.
And it's not on the taxpayer dollar, it's on us, correct?
And the county manager.
I'm pointing to you. Wait, I'm pointing to all of you. Is it on Robin as well?
No.
No. Oh, no. Okay. So it's on us. It's not on the taxpayer dime at all.
That's correct. So since about 1960, the county commissioners have supported the pancake breakfast for the community. It started out as a thing to support 4-H members and people that were supporting the fair, and it's grown into a community event over the years. So come one, come all, everyone come out, have pancakes, and then enjoy the fair that day.
On us. And it's called the pancake breakfast because there's no meat. Is that correct?
No.
There's
just
no
pancakes.
meat, just pancakes.
And yeah.
But they're good pancakes, and they're good. So
So I'll bring my own sausage, okay.
Unfortunately, the county manager will not be able to participate on that this year.
Are you gone? Who approves that?
Exactly, this is my wife.
Oh, you wife, okay. All right, well, you will be missed, because you're very part and parcel of it. But it's fun, thank you very much. Anything with Brian for PIO?
No, sir. No.
Thank you,
thank you.
thank you. Public hearing decisions pending.
Nothing for your consideration, Commissioners.
Yay. Now we'll get into Commissioner's item. The first one is Courthouse and Administrative Services Building Project.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. Before you, I'm going to go through this attachment. Okay. And back on as to Mr. Pettit submitted two documents, one on July 2nd, which is the aerials, and then on July 5th, report, which includes a proposal. Perhaps the district court could be relocated to the Family Justice Center as an expansion. He provided a couple of dimensions in an area as to where this could occur. And also he provided an explanation, a thought process as to how he concluded with that particular suggestion. Within the whole context, he stated that perhaps this could be built with close to $4 million. In here, he made some justification as to how he arrived and derived to those costs. And also, he attached copies of some of the square footage that we have included on the feasibility study, as he stated on his report. And also on the last page, there is a response from Rick Thomas, our project manager, and where he looked at Mr. Pettit's proposal, and he made a, let me stress this, a high-level assessment of his proposal. And going through this, Mr. Pettit used an existing and standard area total needs, square footage needs for district court, which is just about 18,000 square feet. And Rick stated that perhaps the actual need for the long term, which in 2050, as stated in the same space analysis, is 39,000 square feet, thereabouts. There's also a little bit of a difference as to how the cost per square footage for construction should be, which comes back in terms of a difference in terms of the cost of between $4 million, as Mr. Pettit stated, perhaps with a cost of $25 million. And again, this is a very high level assessment. And the last 4 point that Rick made, also there is some issues with the stormwater, but also stated that that at this point it's too premature really to do a good feasibility study. So that is goes my question. At this point, I'm really not in the position to advise the board whether this proposal from Mr. Pettit is right, wrong, or indifferent, is feasible, is not feasible, because it requires more in-depth study. And that is probably perhaps the question that I have for the board, is how you would like staff to manage proposals submitted, not just Mr. Pettit, but also for perhaps other citizens, on potential ideas as to how the courthouse or portions of the courthouse could be improved. And this really, at this point, that's where I am in terms of asking direction from the board as to how we can probably, whether you're interested in fully assess and address some of the proposals that might be coming to the county from citizens. Because again, I don't want to disregard Mr. Pettit's proposal, because we have gotten to the point really to fully assess whether it's a possible and viable solution. And that is the direction that I asked for the board, whether you like staff to spend time and effort to assess those feasibility proposals down the road. Considering that you have already provided a direction, and whether any type of proposals that you would like to explore between now and April of 2020, that is really within your purview. You can always change direction, and that is as you see fit. But in order for me to provide you an adequate information, in order for you to make an informed decision, we need to spend time and effort to address proposals.
Before I get to my seatmates, I'm going to ask you this: what with the information that was proposed, how much time was spent on staff and/or Mr. Thomas in doing this work to come up with an answer and guesstimates and such? And are we paying additional money to Mr. Thomas to do this kind of work?
So this is Rick Thomas, our project manager, is not a consultant.
Okay.
And that is the question that I ask. If we were to do further in-depth analysis of the proposals, we may need to spend additional resources.
Okay.
So what Rick Thomas did is just had a high-level assessment based on his perspective.
But we don't have a guess as to how much time this has taken him.
Rick Thomas?
Rick Thomas.
I'll probably took him a couple of days, 2 days to go through this. Yeah.
Comments? Go ahead.
I guess Mr. Pettit's proposal is on the agenda today. Are we going to hear from Mr. Pettit? That's one of my questions. I think the tenacity that he has shown in this particular issue, I'd personally like to hear from him. I don't know what the board's pleasure is, or if that had been discussed with the county manager or anybody involved, but that's all there's a lot of work that went into this on his part, and I'd like to hear his proposal, just in a Reader's Digest version, I guess.
Comments?
That's okay with me.
Where is that on the agenda today?
No,
It's number one under Commissioner items.
Commissioner Edwards talking about this agenda.
Oh, right here. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought you meant on the agenda today.
Oh,
I didn't remember seeing that.
No, here on our.
Got it. Okay. All right. Sure.
Thank you, Commissioners. I appreciate getting a chance to explain this little program I have set up. You've all had a chance to take a basic, brief look at the alternative, as I labeled it. And one of the things about the alternative, first am I going to mention is I break it down in comparison to response that I received just this morning, is that this is an alternative setup for the idea of a program that is a growing program for the district court to meet the needs of district court and the county in its current financial conditions and its needs. The concept and design, my background happen to be in construction and development and such. And the particular portion of my suggestion is that a building could be attached, probably because we don't have the ability to work the scheduling process well with the facilities we have over there. So an additional building would probably be required. And my choice was basically to bring the current system for district court, which would remove half the parking requirements of what we have up here at the courthouse, over to another site from a level of what it currently has, which is about 9,200 square feet of occupancy in their current facility here, over to what is referred to as a standard, which would take us up to 18,800 square feet. I'm not planning for 2,050, I'm not planning for 2,090, but it would bring us up to a current standard level, which would double their current square footage for what they have. And that should be able to meet our needs for an extended time. If I went clear out to the 2050, we'd also be accommodating for another, I believe it is 24 more employees, to be prepared for 24 more employees. We don't need to do that yet. That's the reason why I proposed my program. And if you build the building correct, in those times in the future when you may need more, you should be able to add on to an extension on that portion of the building and be able to accommodate. One of the reasons why I, as noted in the alternative, that I set it up on the basis I did is to get rid of a current security station, and you'll save about $300,000 is my estimate on labor. Because you have a current facility right there. Everybody can go through, and it's really very used, very little, but you're paying employees there. So you're going to save cost of labor, which can help offset the cost of an actual project. Now, in regards to the total square footage, I have a disagreement with staff, because staff would like the whole shebang for 2050. Okay? My position, we don't need that. The cost figures involved to build. Building a 2-story structure is not as expensive as building a 7-story structure. A lot of difference in cost. And the cost that was done, the analysis done by the group that did their analysis on the entire courthouse, they did it on a basis of contacting Mortensen, which is a large contractor, and getting their per square foot cost. Well, their per square foot cost for administrative or courts as such was around $250 to $260 a square foot, using that 7-story structure. To go for a 2-story structure, to be looking at around $200 a square foot, while that seems very adequate, you could easily go up to $350 a square foot, and you'd still be around $6 million, approximately. So what I'm saying, total with some furniture, $350 a square foot based on my program, I believe is actually $4.5 million. Okay, but you're going to need some area and space, but we don't have to have everything or nothing. And if you've been to that facility, I would encourage you to go, because this facility may not actually have as many needs as the new projected spot where the district court would go. Because there's already a huge amount of hallways and waiting space already on the same floor where the projected courtrooms would go. So, once again, another cost savings.
You're talking about the family court?
Yes.
Oh.
Have you've been up to the family court, I'm sure, and you've seen those long hallways with long benches and everything?
Sure.
Yes.
I was a family law attorney before I.
There we go. Well, you're familiar with the site. And I think from looking at the diagram, you can look down and see at that diagram, you can see that it does have, a location there that would be added onto pretty easily with the design of the building. Okay. Now, the other portion, someone was talking about stormwater. If you look in the northeast corner of that property, there's a large stormwater pond that's already there. So I'm a big advocate for taking care of proper stormwater issues, but that is certainly already on the site and could be enlarged slightly for the additional space. So I think that my concerns here today, from listening, from getting a response back in the email, is that staff may have an agenda that they would like to go forward with the new courthouse. I'm submitting a alternative to deal with major issues for the current courthouse problems. I think this would take care of a vast amount of problems at this site. It would provide ample services. It would save money. And I think that getting a little better pricing estimates, it would appear that you're almost trying to reduce this alternative as being unimportant because, well, the cost is too great. Well, if Mortensen says $250 a square foot and the county guy comes up and says, well, it's $500 a square foot, I guess I can go out and get some alternative estimates for you, because I don't think you need to listen to just staff. Okay? I think with your current situation You need to move forward and know that there's limitations with what you have. And this plan, as I see it, would be a very good alternative. I am more than happy to reach out and get some more estimates for some of these things. I just have to make a few phone calls. And then maybe you can listen to an alternative to what staff might be doing in terms of pushing any particular chosen agenda. Do you have other questions?
Go ahead.
I don't know as I have other questions of you, Mr. Pettit. I want to thank you for your effort that you've put in here, but I do have maybe a little discussion for my board members.
Do you have any questions?
Same, I don't think I have any other questions
either.
for John.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your diligence.
Go ahead.
I guess my concern is, and you know, it's public knowledge, I did not support moving downtown, mainly because I just don't think it's going to pass. But I think it would be irresponsible, at least on my part, especially in lieu of that vote, that we not continue to look at potential alternatives to solve some of the problems that do exist in the courts. And that is why I'm kind of, I don't know anything about this planning process that Mr. Pettit put together, but I'm looking almost at anything that we can do, because I don't feel the bond issue is going to pass, and I still know we have a problem that we need to address. So
At the
that's why,
courthouse.
yeah, and so that's why I'm paying attention to anything that citizens are willing to bring forward. I just think it's always worth listening and seeing if somebody doesn't come up with something that truly makes sense. I will say on its face, this makes sense, because we've got that facility over there where that new building would be put up. It's a parking lot, so it isn't a big deal to have to come up with new areas for construction, and the groundwater thing sounds like it might be adequate. I don't know what we want to put into at this point in time, but at some point in time, I'm afraid we're going to have to be revisiting this. And maybe now isn't the time, but certainly if this thing does not pass, we're still going to be obligated to try and come up with a solution for the courts. And so that's where I'm at, is just trying to accept and digest all information, especially that the public might bring in.
I pretty much agree with everything you just said. I mean, it's you know, I was not part of the process that led to the development of the courthouse proposal. I don't know what was considered as an alternative. I don't know why exactly. I'm not saying I don't understand why, but I don't know. I wasn't there sitting through the meetings to figure out why X alternative or Y alternative or Z alternative was set aside and building a new building was the clear choice. There may be good reasons for that. I took office, and a lot of money has been spent, as been pointed out by citizens, to develop the proposal. And with respect to the previous, with all due respect to previous boards' decisions and taxpayer money, I feel that it would be irresponsible of me to not let the voters. This proposal is a good proposal. It's well thought out. It's something that's been developed and by previous boards, and I think the people should have a right to make their decision about whether this is how they want to solve this problem. We all acknowledge there's a problem. Even Mr. Pettit is here today to acknowledge that we have space issues, we have parking issues, we have building issues, and so we all know there's a problem. A lot of effort went into putting together a proposal. That proposal deserves to go to the voters. But I agree 100% with Commissioner Edwards that it may or may not pass. I mean, I can afford $12 a month, but the majority of citizens may decide they can't, and that's their prerogative to say no. And then we still have to deal with the issue, and we should be looking at Plan B. And this is as reasonable of a. I haven't heard a lot of details about any Plan B, but this is as reasonable as any Plan B that I've heard of, because I've heard several different things, just a high level. So I'm not adverse at all, depending on, I think you asked the same question, what kind of staff effort would be involved to work on alternatives, whether it's this or something else. I'm not opposed to that whatsoever if it's reasonable. Understanding that we've already spent a lot of money to develop Plan A, and I don't want to spend tons of extra money working on a Plan B just yet, but there may be a reasonable approach to move forward on exploratory. I don't know.
So yes?
Well, I'm not ready to make a motion that we expend X dollars or assign X staff to a particular issue, because I don't know enough about it. But as Mr. Pettit said, he's been involved in this type of activity in the past. So that adds credibility to what he's bringing to the table. Maybe we have to wait and see what happens when the voters vote. I'm pretty confident in my position as to the way that thing's going to turn out. I just want to be prepared for fixing a problem that we all know is a problem, but there's different levels of fixes.
So I agree with portions of what you said, and I agree with what you said as well. But my take is I do not want to ever disregard public input or public discourse, nor do I view staff as having a hidden agenda and leading us as a fish on a hook, because they have a real vested background in this type of work. And I drove a bobtail for a short period of time in my life, and even for a short period a semi. Didn't make me a truck driver. So I rely on people that are vested on a regular basis in this type of work. And so I would engage the public, come up with alternatives, if they're viable alternatives. But what I want to avoid is staff time, our time, staff time, and then coming back and rebutting and taking days to research, and just to the point of waylaying the process and expending more time and money and resources, because we've been through this over the last couple of years, and very thoughtful and in-depth study into this project. And whether it be 10 people, 5 people, or 2 people that want to keep proffering different ideas, we should look at it. We should look at it. Something may come up and say, wow, we hadn't thought of that. But look at it to the point where, is it viable? Has it been considered in the past and such? So where it's reasonable when it comes to expending time and or resources. And so I value the amount of work that Mr. Pettit put into this. I mean, my gosh, this is an in-depth, and I appreciate that. And he has made several calls. So I always want to engage the public, but not the extent where it delays the process and expends so much more resource than we're afforded to have, if that makes sense. It's got to be reasonable. Yes, sir.
You brought up a couple of good points there about, is it viable and have we looked at it in the past, and was this part of some study or review in years past? Because one of the things that I've been concerned about is the empty beds over at the juvenile facility. I think the facility's, I don't know, it's got 90 beds. Maybe it was built with 90. It's got about 10 people incarcerated, juveniles over there. So that's a big concern to me, that we're not adequately using facilities that the taxpayers built. So I don't know how this is all going to fit, but it almost is it's going to take this thing, well, it would almost take this whole bond issue failing before we actually jump into it with both feet. But could we put a couple toes in the water and just ask maybe the county manager to, because he's new in his role, but maybe there's been past review of something like this, and we could say, well, yeah, we looked at that, or we could say, no, we didn't look at that. I'd kind of like to know what the answer is to that question as I'm mulling things through, because I've had other citizens that have come forward. So if the history's not there, I mean, why not let the county manager just take a look and ask some of the folks that have been here for a while?
Let me address that in terms of The scope of work of what it was given to staff by the board was not to explore options as to how each office could be addressed, whether it's at district court or superior court. The scope of work the board approved was to look at the replacement of this entire campus. And that's how the feasibility study went about. Never was the intent to forego or not to look at different alternatives or parceling things out, such as this proposal, because it was never part of the scope of work the board provided to staff. So I cannot give you the answer because never was the direction by the board given.
I seem to remember,
specific,
before my time, but I seem to remember someone talking about using county land that's right near here to build a smaller building for district court, so that, you know, it would be, obviously it wouldn't be at family court, but it would be the same idea of taking a piece of what's here, moving it somewhere cheaper, leaving continuing to use what's left here.
That was the 2015, I believe, feasibility study. They just look at options in terms of what an urban setting would look. And that was the basis in which the board approved to continue to do a feasibility study of the 3 sites after the board decided on the top 3 sites. So, and that was the scope of work, again, given to staff. The staff never developed a scope of work. And the staff never put aside any particular options because that was never given in terms of the direction. The direction was given, look at the entire replacement of this site based on the 3 sites that you study. And each of those sites had different options. The Plum Street, I believe, had a couple of different options. This site, as you may recall, had maybe 4 different options. And the west side had a couple of options for your consideration. And that was the basis in which the board decided to go with the Plum Street. So along the way, the staff is now working on a separate scope of work, on a separate agenda. The staff is working at the direction the board has provided for the years past. And again, never was given a direction, never was included in the scope of work to look at specific options, such as this one.
And we'll get to Robin, but I just want to add on to what you were saying. With the amount of resources, money, and time that was spent on the current project that's now moving towards a ballot measure in 8-9 months, I am not interested in redirecting staff. Well, let's do this stuff instead. I'm not interested in that at all. It's okay to look at this at face value. Oh, that's fascinating. Okay, is it feasible? Nope. Okay, let's put it aside. But I don't want to redirect staff into a different direction at this point. Robin?
It's gone red.
Okay.
Thank you, Romero. So I was just going to add that prior to the direction from the board to do a study of the feasibility of a comprehensive replacement of this campus, we had another study, also by Ron Thomas, of what it would take to reconstruct our current facilities to be able to accommodate the current
Space needs.
space needs of the offices and departments that are here. So we have that, and even after that, the direction came from the board to look at a single replacement courthouse. So we've been going down a path. We have this other information. We'd be happy to dust it off and share it with you. And in the meantime, I have been collecting any other proposals that come in. So should the time come, we could certainly start at that point to look at what else.
And I agree with Commissioner. I agree with Commissioner Edwards because at the point of if the board decided not to support this larger replacement, all the options need to be put on the table, and all the options they need to be assessed by you as to how you, because the need is not going to disappear. And then what will be the alternatives you may consider to address the current and future needs. And for me, the question that I asked for the board, as proposals come in, how do you want staff to respond? Do you want us to get a little more in detail, spend more effort, or you want to hold this and look at those alternatives next year? That is the question that I asked for the board, providing direction.
Well, I'll tell you what I like about this proposal is that this campus is, to me, this campus is fatally flawed. I do not want to invest more money in this campus. So this proposal makes some sense to me because it's kind of piecing it out, but it's not trying to save this dying ship, so to speak. And and so there's logic. There's a scaled down logic to this that I could see as having, making sense. Aside, because all the proposals about trying to reconstruct this thing is not, that's a waste of taxpayer money.
But for a point of clarification, though, and I agree with what you just said, are you willing, do you want to still engage the bigger picture and move on with the April ballot?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a proposal that looks, again, I said it again, but the boards before me put this together, and there's nothing illogical about it. It's just expensive, and that's the reality of it. But it was decided by previous boards that they wanted to present this to the people, and I want the people to have that decision, and they can tell us what they want. That's what democracy's for. But it makes sense. I'm glad Robin said what she's saying, that you're collecting things and you're getting ready, because we're going to, as Commissioner Edwards said, I think it's very likely, it's very possible that we'll have an alternative decision to make next spring. And whatever not prohibitively, whatever non-expensive preparatory work can be done to prepare for that, we should be doing. That's our responsibility.
Right.
Exactly, and just to be clear, I'm collecting these things, putting them in a folder to work on them should the time come. I'm not spending any hours at this time on investigating any of the proposals that are coming. I'm just gathering them up. And should the time come, I don't think that we would spend a lesser amount of money relocating all of our offices and departments that are currently on this campus elsewhere. We would have to do something to rehabilitate these buildings. So, some preservation to the property we're on is going to be required if we
Just
don't.
to factor into the overall
Exactly.
thing.
Just to, keep that in mind.
Because Mr. Pettit's proposal is proposing that we
Only for district court.
continue to, we don't necessarily invest more
Right.
in enhancing, but we have to keep
Right.
these buildings.
So here's a proposal that would
Operational.
address what district court needs. The sheriff has brought you a proposal to address his needs. Superior Court has needs. All of the other services on the Hill have needs. So we'll have to figure out how to address all of them.
Go ahead, Gary.
I guess at some point, we're going to find out. That's going to be in the spring as to the way we need to proceed. But I do want to thank Mr. Pettit for bringing this forward. And I think that even just looking at our 3 security sites that we have, Superior Court, District Court, and Family Court, just consolidating those 3 sites into 2 sites, if you followed this proposal, would be quite a savings, because labor is a big issue. And so I just think it's got merit, and I'm glad you're hanging on to things. Do you need my copy, or do you have one of your own?
I have a few, thank you.
Okay, and I realize this is probably premature to get into this. I'm probably more of a hurry to get into it because my vote was different as well. We have a different thought process and how things are going to proceed. But I respect your positions on that issue. So I'm a little more susceptible to information coming in, I guess. And so I will yield to the majority on that issue. But I want to thank Mr. Pettit for bringing this thing forward.
You want to wrap it up so we can move on?
Yeah, and also I'd like to thank Mr. Pettit. And again, At this point, I'm not in the position to advise the board whether it's feasible or unfeasible or not. Because this could be a good feasible alternative down the road. I just want to make sure that it is clear that I'm not providing a perspective from the staff point of view because we have not gotten to the level of detail of assessment.
And I guess maybe just one comment before we move on.
Yeah.
I have been involved in a lot of school construction projects in which we went out to the public and got voter approval, and we didn't always get voter approval. So oftentimes then you had to go back and modify the plan. Mm-hmm. And at that time, you know, maybe, yeah, we aren't able to consolidate like we wanted to build. Maybe we have to come up with Plan B that, and then maybe the voters will go for it. So
Yeah.
I just, again, I think it was worth hearing from Mr. Pettit and put it in Robin's file and see where we go in April.
We'll collect all the options
Okay.
as we have, and depends how it goes. We'll bring that up before you as the time comes.
Great, then thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pettit.
Now we have we have 3 other items and an executive session, and we have legal staff here for the exec session.
Commissioners, the SWAC motion, the White House invitation, that could probably be delayed for a week. I can bring those items to you next Tuesday morning.
Perfect, that's perfect, thank you.
And then consider going to an executive session.
So let's go into exec session. Thank you, goodbye.
Before you go into an executive session, Commissioners, this is related to a public records suit that is in the process of being filed against the county. And the parties involved in that, or at least the party involved in that, is a relative of Commissioner Edwards. So based on that, I recommend Commissioner Edwards to recuse himself from the executive session.
And I guess my question might be of counsel. I don't know yet who might answer this question. I've got a lot of relatives in this county. Haven't been here, you know, the family's been here 150 years. I bet I got more cousins that I could ever name.
In this case, a close relative.
Yeah, anyway, so with all fairness in mind, I want to make sure that the public does know that we want things to be fairly adjudicated in Thurston County, and that's what this board probably will be involved in at some point. On the other hand, I want to make sure that should there be a tie situation in a vote, what happens then? That's my concern. Do I get to appoint an alternate? Do I step back in? Do I get educated at that particular point if I am expected to be a tiebreaker? So I would just ask that as this process moves forward, be aware that if an agreement isn't reached, then I might have to come back in. I mean, that's my understanding of the process.
Yeah, and your prosecuting attorneys will advise as to the options that you have if we get.
Yeah, I mean, it might be a moot issue.
Yeah,
So anyway, I take my duties seriously, and
Don't turn it off yet.
good luck to you folks. I'm on the way out the door here.
Okay. All right, now we're in executive session then, thank you.
He fixed